It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I almost said Rocking Around the 412. Excuse me. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host, Smitty. Be sure to go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. We keep it simple for you. And if you're not watching the show over there already, go check out our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. Also, leave a like on the channel. It helps us out a lot. Also, check us out on the listening platforms. If you listen to the podcast, follow us there. Leave a 5-star review on places like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And check out the description of each show where you can see the links to all of our great sponsors, including some clothing brands, some electrical work if you need that in the local Pittsburgh area. So go check the links out as well. This is the Steelers episode. And, you know, we keep chipping away at it in the offseason. We've had the draft stuff. We had the free agency stuff. Now we're getting into some schedule stuff. At least with the Steelers, we have some stuff to talk about year round. So they never keep it boring. We actually get a schedule this time. How many games? I'm sure you're going to talk about the schedule before we get into it, but how many of these games before the actual schedule was announced or like presented to everybody did you know about?
All of them.
All of them. Okay. So you knew all of them.
Yeah, I was able to, I don't know how many I ended up being the one to leak, but, you know, I was letting the kids have their fun for a little bit there, you know, go ahead and put the home opener out, whatever. The one that I wanted to get for sure was the Green Bay Sunday Night Football. I wanted to be the one to put that one out for sure. So I think I had the bye week, Green Bay, Cleveland here, both Baltimore games. And I think that's it. Those were the ones that I got credit for putting out.
Okay.
By like
the other ones you graciously let everybody else have.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by the time that I got the information, 100% transparency, by the time that I got the information, a couple had already been put out. So like I was joking about letting the kids play and stuff like that. I didn't know prior to about I actually, leading up to like 48 hours before, the conversation was Green Bay Monday Night Football to kick off, or because that's the only way they could have opened up at home, basically, was if it was going to be in prime time, or going on the road against the Browns or the Jets. So the Jets were in the conversation. They were one of the three that I was hearing. But that wasn't the one. I was honestly hoping for Green Bay on Monday night. I thought that would have been cool to kick off the season. But I mean, when you look at the opening slate in general, I think they got it right. I'll be honest, if you go through, not just for the Steelers, but like in general across the NFL slate, I don't know what it is this year on paper, and I'm not saying it's going to end up being this way by when it's all said and done. On paper, I think it's a pretty weak looking Sunday night schedule. I don't know if they're trying to make it like even with Thursday night and Monday night or what the idea was, but the Sunday Night Football, I was like, man, like there's like 4 or 5 games that on paper look like they're really good matchups here. And Sunday night's typically the one that's like the strongest to me.
Yeah, I'm looking through the Sunday night schedule right now. Few games that are just popping off the page. I haven't looked at this, so raw reaction. Ravens at Bills seems like a decent one. Going through it, I mean, you have Chiefs and Lions. That should be a good one as well.
Yeah, but like, what are the Falcons doing in there? Like,
Falcons
49ers?
at 49ers. Oh, this one could be interesting. Broncos and Commanders at Commanders with Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels.
Could be. I see why they did it, obviously, last year's rookies, but I mean.
But yeah, I mean, you have a few Cowboys in here, which you're going to have, but I mean, who knows if they're going to actually be any good.
The Chiefs having half of their schedule in primetime or standalone. That's crazy.
Really? That's crazy.
They got 7 primetime, and then they have another 1 or 2 that are just standalone.
That's nuts. Games. That is nuts. Also, Falcons at Vikings.
Yeah, and Falcons are heavily Falcons and Dolphins. Ton of primetime games this year, like 6 each. I don't understand.
Yeah, I was going to say Bengals at Dolphins towards the end of the year.
Yeah. Now, you know, that could be flexed, but that's why I said on paper, looking at it right now, it just looks kind of odd to me. The whole landscape, not just the Steelers here, but we got way off topic there. Yeah, I had a couple of the games that I got to league. I had the full schedule, I think, by about 5:00 p.m.
Okay.
And I know Faribault gave me credit. Obviously, Steelers Now, our site, I got credit for putting out the whole schedule. Not sure if anybody else did, but it is what it is. The real ones know. You actually, though, like, not related at all. When you were bringing the podcast in and almost said rock around the 412, I looked at it's May 15th right now.
We have less than 2 months until Rocking Around the 412 starts again.
And rocking around the 412, which is crazy to think about. If you've been watching or listening to this podcast, that's our yearly Christmas mission. And I love doing it. We love doing it. But like the months where we're not doing it and it's just like no weight on the shoulders at all, don't have to worry about where I'm storing stuff and figuring out all the logistics of things. It's nice to, be at ease for a little bit there. So that month and a half, we're going to take advantage of not having rocking around the 412 going on. But when the time comes, be full steam ahead. Steelers schedule. So already kind of alluded to it, but kicking off, going to not New York, East Rutherford, New Jersey, to take on the New York Jets. Very interesting because we could have a dual revenge game here. Justin Fields, obviously the New York Jets starting quarterback. Allen made the joke that it's a Brandon Eccles revenge game, the cornerback who came over to the Pittsburgh via free agency. But the big ones, obviously, is Aaron Rodgers going to sign. And the NFL, bearing that they did not bake that into consideration here. If they felt like they were that was going to happen and it would play into the scheduling, they would have put it in a primetime or standalone slot. I don't believe that for a second. I think it was baked into the Steelers schedule. I think that's why we're playing the Jets to begin with. I think it's why we have the Packers on Sunday Night Football. So I'm still in the mindset that this is eventually going to happen. I know we keep getting on here and talking about it. Don't have a timeline to give you guys. Don't know what else to say. He's dealing with something that's personal to him, close to him. And I think
it's called ayahuasca and some darkness retreats.
Like, this is not something that I want to speculate on, but just the way that he's talked about it, I think that somebody very close to him is passing away. That's like the way that I've taken this. Now, my question with that then becomes, what's the desire to continue playing football? Like, is it still going to be, is he going to be able to continue? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, I think the picture that he has painted. Like, that's what I took away from the Pat McAfee conversation. I still think at the end of the day that he's going to end up being the Steelers starting quarterback this year. And for that reason, I think this is, a fun little matchup to kick off the season because you got Fields going against the Steelers and Rodgers going against the Jets, both quarterbacks would love to prove the other organization wrong in terms of the direction that they decided to go. I just mentioned this to you before. I wasn't hating. Love the guys that do this other podcast, but it's funny because they were going through and doing like game by game predictions. I don't know how you feel about that. I just don't like doing it because
I don't like doing it, but if we're gonna do it, I don't think that May 15th, which obviously this isn't coming out May 15th, but it's the day we're recording it. I don't think May 15th is the day to do it. For one, like you just mentioned, we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. A lot of these games could be predicted differently if we knew if Aaron Rodgers is going to be here, or are we going to have Mason Rudolph as a starting quarterback? What other wide receiver, if they are going to add another one? Like, there's just so many variables. So yeah, I don't want to go through this as like a game by game, like win-loss basis. But I will, just speaking of the Jets, as a season opener, I'm not going to say win or loss, but I like that. I think the starting out on the season is a very winnable game for the Steelers. And I think the Jets and the Steelers, very similar organizations as far as like kind of the way the team is structured right now and where they are in trying to make their teams better. So it could be a decent matchup to watch as far as a game goes. But I think that at least looking at game one, you could start a season way worse. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were starting with the 49ers and got trounced. So I'm not going to complain about going to East Rutherford and playing the Jets in game one.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, sure, I'm fine with it, especially when you consider, like, if it is Aaron coming in and he's not here yet, might be slow out of the gate. So, like, maybe it's good to start off the season, and it's not just that game. I mean, Seattle, I think, is going to be a competitive team this year. I don't know with you're at and with where you're at in terms of Sam Darnold, and if you're a believer in him, like was last year just a complete turnaround? Was it more a product of Kevin O'Connell and what he's able to bring out of guys, or where you're at with that? I think Seattle likes him, but clearly don't love him based off the way they structured that contract. Like they're committing this year to him, and that's basically it. So we'll see how things go for him there. But I think basically they're telling you, they traded away DK Metcalf. I think they're going in a different direction. I think they're kind of at the very early stages of a retool. I'm not going to say full-on rebuild. They're clearly not stripping it down to the studs, but of a retooling there. I don't think they're going to be necessarily very good, but I think they're going to be competitive in games, if that makes sense. So I think that especially because Mike McDonald, really good defensive coordinator for the Ravens. I was happy that he landed a head coaching gig and got the hell out of there. Because I think he's really good in terms of, so I think they're going to be competitive just by that, their scheme and the way that they play. Interesting home opener though. I mean, they opened with them in 2019. It was actually my first game as a season ticket holder when Ben tore his elbow. So bad omen there. I thought about selling my tickets one game into that thing, but so it's interesting that that's a team that, just 6 years ago they opened up with, and here they are because it's an NFC team that we don't see all that often. And we're playing again and now opening against them. I say don't see it often, but we played them 4 times since 2019. Just because of like the weird, like additional one. Yeah, we would have played them in 19, 21, and then we played them in 23 and now 25.
That's crazy. Yeah, the way that works out. Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup. I like the DK Metcalf aspect to it, like multiple revenge games potentially to open up this season. The way that they've operated this offseason with the Seahawks is interesting to me. Like bringing in Cooper Kupp, signing Darnold to that 1 year, or not 1 year deal, but essentially like committing at least one full year to him money wise, and then seeing where it goes from there. Darnold, to me, like that is the way that I would have wanted to structure something for him anyway if I was a team signing him. Mainly because I feel
Steelers want to structure it.
I feel like it's somewhere in the middle for where the true Darnold actually is. I don't necessarily think that he is the high of highs that you saw with Minnesota last year. I think that a lot of that was Kevin O'Connell bringing that out of him and being in that Vikings offense. And then I think that the low of lows that you saw from Darnold, whether that was in New York or whether that was in Carolina, I don't necessarily think he's that player all the time either. I think you're going to meet somewhere in the middle. I think that Seattle is probably going to be a spot where that happens because they're not like an organization like a Jets where I think that they're just going to bottom out at quarterback and then destroy the quarterback. But I just don't think that the Jets are going to have somebody to bring that out of him like Kevin O'Connell did last year. So the threat of Sam Darnold to me as a quarterback foe on paper and even on the field just doesn't really scare me all that much, despite what he did last season. It was a phenomenal one season, but that's it. That was one season out of his 7 or 8 year NFL career that you can look at and say, wow, that was a really good one. I don't know that I necessarily trust that he's going to be able to replicate what he was doing, especially early on in the season with a new team. Interesting room, especially offensively, that they have going on in Seattle. I mean, their wide receiver room is MVS, which is okay. Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's awesome. And then they added Cooper Kupp. At this point, what is Cooper Kupp going to be able to provide for them? Like, is he going to be the Pro Bowl caliber receiver that he was in LA, or is he going to be something else? I mean, we had lengthy conversations about Cooper Kupp this offseason for the Steelers, and we were kind of wishy-washy for the Steelers. I imagine the Seattle fans are probably feeling the same. But yeah, I think that this game being the home opener as well, the first one of the season, is interesting. Just seeing what happened 6 years ago. Obviously, don't want something to happen in this game like it did then, but it just you can't help but think about the drawbacks to that moment with it being in like the same spot in the schedule.
And that's, Mason had to play a big chunk of that game because of that injury happening earlier. Right now, if they played, Mason would be the starter. You replied to my tweet with Aaron running onto the field with the American flag. Yeah, that's basically how long Ben's season lasted in 2019. He played the full game against New England the previous game where they got blown out like 37-3 or something like that. Yeah, like it was ridiculous. But anyways, that's an interesting home opener. Then we go to
Also,
week 3.
this isn't about the home opener. I just want to touch on one thing about the Jets real quick because we moved on to the home opener before I could.
Mhm.
I think a storyline about that Jets game is which uniform is Alan Lazard going to be playing in? Is he going to be in a New York jersey, a Steelers jersey, or a different jersey entirely?
Yeah, that's fair. That's certainly a name to watch throughout, the training camp, I guess. Like, that's another thing. Like, I know it's probably gotten tiresome for Steelers fans because it's the same conversation we were having last year. I think it's entirely possible they wait and see what happens with other rosters around the league through training camp for the wide receiver situation. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, between that game, between the Seattle game, 2 very winnable games, just because I think everybody knows how I feel about Justin Fields. Loved him at Ohio State. I don't think he's taken the necessary steps to be a franchise quarterback. Would not have wanted my team to be the team to give him the contract that he got. And Sam Darnold, think he's a good player, but don't think he's a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. A lot of new shirts rolling in over there. Maybe want to put a hold on getting that DK Metcalf design. We'll see if he's going to change his number. My newest one, not here yet, should be here. Ooh, I think it says arriving Saturday. I got a Caleb Johnson Iowa shirt after we drafted him. Colors basically look the same. Just
if you squint, it's a Steelers shirt. Yeah. It's fine.
So very excited about that. But go check them out. Save yourself $10 using code AT412. It's been booming over there, by the way. I get like a message at the end of beginning of every month about what the previous month's numbers did with our code. A lot of people have been using it, so appreciate you guys. Hopefully not too many people get burned if DK does change his number. But anyways, I said those 2 quarterbacks were not game changers. This guy could be. How quickly is he going to take that leap? Drake May of the New England Patriots. Full disclosure, despite the year Jaden Daniels had, I didn't forecast something like that happening. Caleb Williams was an awesome prospect, very good quarterback class last year. I had Drake May as TB1 of the entire thing going into last year's draft. So I love Drake May, love his game. I think Stephon Diggs, despite his age coming off that injury, is like the type of receiver that can get the most out of him, assuming health. So I really like that fit. I don't love the rest of the weapons on that offense. I think Travion Henderson's a great back to get in there, though, for him, too. They spent a 2nd-round pick on. So New England don't think they're going to be good. Nowhere close to being good, but I think it's a nice little I don't know if I want to use the word test even, but I'm going to enjoy seeing the test of Drake May, for lack of a better word, going against this defense. So I think it's a good measuring stick game for him, more so than I would say for the Steelers. But for that reason, pretty intrigued by it. And, I guess never take anything for granted going against that team, because we saw even at their worst, the worst possible Patriots team that we've seen in our lifetimes, they upset the Steelers at Acrisure Stadium a couple years ago. So.
Yeah, you can never sleep on him. Interested to see how Drake May develop as a quarterback. I was pretty high on him coming out too. I didn't have as a number 1 quarterback, but I do think that as far as like teams to be drafted by, you could do a lot worse than the Patriots. So we always talk about like the positions that these players are going to, and I think that was a great fit for him. And it's just some personal storylines about this game. Looking at it, we have Bobby Spillane, who signed with the Patriots, going to be playing there. Friend of the number. What number is he?
14.
14. Oh, what is he? Yeah. He's switching to wide receiver. Big slot.
Although, did Diggs get 1 then? He must have.
Stephon Diggs, number 8.
Oh, the heck! All right, well,
that's interesting. But yeah, Bobby Spillane going to be playing against us with the Patriots. Also, for me personally, Kyrus Tonga, a defensive tackle, nose tackle out of BYU. I'll be watching that. But also, friend of the show, Josh Dobbs, is backing up Drake May.
That's right now. And he's done it. I mean, they trade Joe Milton for that reason. I think they like Dobbs quite a bit. So yeah, the next one, obviously, a big one to talk about here. We don't have to do this game by game. I wanted to at least get to this first quarter and talk about this one, and then we'll just highlight like which ones we're looking forward to. Obviously, the division we see twice, so we can just talk about them once a time or whatever. But the Ireland game against the Minnesota Vikings, obviously kicking off at 9:30 over there in Dublin against the Minnesota Vikings. I think I was thrown off because I thought it was already public knowledge that we were playing the Vikings, and I saw like it come out on the schedule leak, and I was like, was this not like I thought we knew this like 2 weeks ago? So I guess my first question is, how do you feel about it being the Vikings? And did you know it was them prior to? Because I swear to God, like I thought that we'd already talked about this.
I thought it was mentioned like around draft time, like when we were doing like the live stream. I thought so. So I wasn't surprised when it was the Vikings. I'm with you. I think we actually talked about that. Maybe not on the show, but like it was knowledge, but maybe on the live stream or something like that. But as far as like the matchup goes, as far as a test, I mean, Minnesota had a good season last year. I'm going to be interested to see how the Vikings do. Moving on, obviously, we literally just talked about Sam Darnold is going to be moving on, but like how they do with the quarterback change, because I mean, there's a lot of believers in JJ McCarthy, but he was out all of last year pretty much. So he's basically a rookie this year. So I'll be curious to see how he gets going. He has a few games to warm up to that one, but also the one thing that's going to be bothersome for me, specifically living in Oklahoma right now, is that game is going to be at 8:30 a.m. So not looking forward to that. But how do you feel about international games? And I'll give my take on them. I like them for growing the sport. I like them. I think that there are some passionate fan bases over in the UK and over in Germany. And I do think that it is good to have your sport on a big stage in those places if you're trying to grow your sport over there. I just hate when my team's the one to do it. that's selfish of me, but that's just really my honest opinion about it.
I think we've gone overboard. Like, I think the Steelers playing in Ireland definitely makes sense. Like, we know that they have a fan base there. They're trying to develop something. But like, and I'm not like, just for the sake of putting like the Jaguars and Titans playing a game in a different, like, what is that doing for anybody? You know what I mean? Like, the Jaguars clearly have their thing in London, so maybe they weren't the best example to use there. I don't know who's the relevant. Panthers. If the Panthers and Titans play a game in Munich, Germany, what's that doing? Like, who cares? So, like, I think that we've gone overboard with the international games. I think there's certain markets that make sense to tap into. And if you're going to do it once, like, whatever, or if it's going to be once every couple of years, but like doing as many international games as we've gotten now, with as many teams being showcased in these countries that I don't think have the desire to or need to have it happen. Like, what I would be doing, honestly, like, stay over here, whether it's the US, Canada, Mexico. Like, you can have international games in Canada and Mexico. And I think it makes way more sense because you know for sure, like, clearly those locations have a bunch of NFL fans. Again, go into these other countries. I think that we've kind of overcorrected here. I don't know, like beyond what its intention was to do. I think that there's too many of them now.
Well, unfortunately for you, I think they're just going to keep happening.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're playing in Australia next year for the first time. Somebody asked us today, we were doing a subscribers only live stream at Steelers Now, and somebody asked, when are we going to see a game in Asia? It's coming. Like, I don't know when, but
I'm sure there will be a game at some point, either in Hong Kong or Japan or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say either 2029 or 2031, the Steelers are going to host a game in Mexico.
Didn't the field catch on fire in Mexico before?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I didn't know that
it wasn't like during the game, but it was like the week of the game. I feel like there was a game several years ago that was supposed to be in Mexico, but the field caught on fire, so they had to change it.
Listen, I like the Vikings are a good team. This is kind of to prove my point here. Vikings are a good team. The Browns are going to be awful. And like, who do they have a global fan base? I don't think so, unless I'm way out of the loop on that. Vikings and Browns playing in London. What is that doing for anybody?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is a fair point.
The Broncos and Jets playing in London.
Yeah, I think that there's a fair point. I think that those are fair points. I hear you out on. I think that you got to think about the matchups smartly.
Actually, speaking of irrelevancy, the Falcons and Colts are playing in Berlin.
Yeah, I mean,
all respect to German football fans, but like even if that's the case, okay, maybe my issue is different than what I'm making it seem to be. If you're going to do this every now and then in these countries, if you're going to have a game being played in Berlin, Germany, why the Colts and Falcons? Actually, the Colts hosted the Patriots or something like that. Are the Colts a team in Berlin for some reason? I don't know. You might know better than me. These look very rare. Commanders and Dolphins playing in Madrid, Spain this year.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
I think that it's tough to say for certain how they should be able to go about it, because I think that there is a market to have these games played. And I think that the trouble that you're going to run into is if you're so dependent on the matchup, then there's only going to be a handful of teams that ever play in these international games, which I don't think is necessarily fair for, one, the fan bases of those teams, no matter how big or small they are in those foreign areas, and two, to those probably better teams that we're talking about, because I would assume that you'd be in the opinion of, like, if you're going to showcase the NFL, you should have like the Chiefs or the Bills or like more marquee names playing.
I'm not even necessarily saying that like it's about the brand. So even though they're not good, like the Raiders are a brand. They could play in Mexico. Like that should be a team playing in Mexico, in my opinion. Yeah. Obviously the Cowboys are a brand too. I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying, but I think the exposure needs to take place like in the US first and make the teams feel more important before going global with them, if that's the case.
Exposure in the US? What do you mean?
Making the team feel more important, like building that brand up nationally to then go internationally where they feel more important.
I understand that, but these are also NFL teams.
I'm not saying
they are the biggest.
I don't. Yeah, but not compared to the other teams within the league.
No, but at the same time, that's then you're still only sending a handful of teams. Because really,
right.
if you're sending the biggest brands internationally, then the only teams that are going to be playing, like if you sent your top 6 brands of football, the only teams that are going to play international games are the Steelers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Raiders, the Packers, and probably the Patriots right now. Or maybe the Chiefs, because of how good how dominant they've been. Like that's really it. And that's where I think that if you're playing that game, I just think it's unfair to those teams because they're the ones that have to travel and play these games. But it's also unfair to like the rest of the league not having the opportunity to do that, but also the fan bases of those international teams. I don't know. I don't think there's a perfect science to any of it.
No, but like what you were saying there is kind of like my point. They don't even feel important enough in the United States when compared to other teams to then think that they're like important enough to play in these international games and make a difference.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just feel like they're way too watered down now, personally. That's just my opinion of it. But clearly, I mean, from a revenue standpoint, they got to be doing great. So
I mean, they sell
maybe
out.
It doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter to international fans who they're seeing play.
Well, and that's the point. Like, that's kind of like how I would view it, because I'm sure that there are, like, you have on the flip side of it, you have soccer fans here. Soccer is by no means the biggest sport like it is in Europe, but you have soccer fans here that will go see West Ham and Tottenham play, because those are 2 Premier League teams that they get to see play, even if they're a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how I'd probably relate it, at least. The closest thing to it.
Yeah. I don't know. If you're not having games in Canada and Mexico, it seems odd to me that we're playing in Madrid, Spain, and Australia starting next year. Brazil. Like, I don't know, but I guess the NFL does enough research, and I'm assuming has poured enough resource in it to know what they're doing. It's just, to me personally, I think we've overcorrected and oversaturated the international game market. But that's all I'll say on it, because now we're way off from the schedule, and we're only at week 4. All right, so yeah, week 5 bye, which I guess get your take on as well. Off the international game makes sense, I guess. So jet lag's very real. There's going to be an adjustment period for the guys there. So from that standpoint, I can get it. So I guess I don't wish that the bye was different. I wish that the international game was like week 7 or week 8, and the bye was on the other side of it there, not playing in week 4 and then bye week 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The bye coming early just kind of stinks, because then you literally play 13 games in a row. So it's the positioning of the bye stinks, but the timing after the international game makes sense.
Yeah, I can't. It makes sense. But yeah, that's going to be tough afterwards. Like you said, it's 13 straight games following that, and then hopefully the postseason. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough stretch for the Steelers for sure post bye. And I know the players don't like the early buys, so be interesting to hear the takes that come out of that happening. Like I said, I don't think we need to go and do every week. They do kick off divisional play the following week after the bye, though.
A lot sooner than last year.
Yeah, a lot. So I said this. I don't know if this is like a thing that they already implemented or if they were going to make this a thing. I had saw, because of what happened with the Steelers and Bears last year, not playing any divisional games until like super late in the season, that they were going to implement it where you had to play at least one divisional game by week 6, like that had to be worked into the schedule. It's exactly week 6 for the Steelers this year. So I'm wondering if that did take effect starting immediately this season. But the Browns come here week 6, followed by Thursday Night Football in Cincinnati week 7, which is interesting because I feel like we just got used to that Cleveland game always being on Thursday night. Yep. And it's the other Ohio team this time. And I think that's going to be very interesting just to see, do they get Trey Hendrickson back? What's that defense going to look like? We know they're going to put up points, but are they going to be able to stop anybody this year?
Yeah, the 2 divisional games coming earlier, I genuinely prefer. I just didn't love how the schedule shaked out at the end of last season. But yeah, having the Browns at home, I feel comfortable with that. My biggest question is, what is their quarterback room going to look like by that time in the season? Who's actually still going to be there? But I feel comfortable very much so with that. And yeah, switching the Browns on Thursday Night Football for the Bengals. Interesting to see how the Trey Hendrickson thing plays out. He doesn't really seem too happy. Definitely, I think he would prefer to be traded from the Bengals, but well, who knows how that's actually going to play out. But even regardless of looking at their defense, the Steelers offense is probably still going to need to score at a high rate in that game to be able to keep up. But maybe the Bengals will have an off week since they have to play on Thursday Night Football too. But who knows? They're playing the highest scoring offense in the league. So they beat them once last year.
Mini bye following that to take us into Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers, where we will see a throwback uniform and a helmet introduced. Very curious as to what those are going to be. I don't know if it's just like the way Art Rooney II worded it, or if we should put stock in the way that he said it, but made it seem like this wasn't like something coming back. Like this is, or I'm sorry,
brand new one.
Yeah, like it's a throwback they haven't had before. Obviously, it's going to be like of a variation of a uniform in the past, but like people that are throwing out like the bumblebees or something, like I think we can roll that out based off the way that he worded this.
I'm thinking, like, do you think they go? Well, no, they've gone all yellow helmets, huh? I'm trying to think of it as a past uniform that I don't know about that they haven't worn before.
Alan pulled up some today while we were doing the podcast, and it's from like the 30s, like the Pittsburgh Pirates uniforms. And the helmets were almost kind of like Michigan Wolverine-like.
Okay, I see that now. That would be pretty neat. I'm looking at like some of these past ones. There's just really not a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Wait, in 1943, World War II is in full force to help maintain high morale throughout the country. The NFL, like Major League Baseball, decides to carry on the advice of none other than President of the United States. Briefly summarized, he said that the games of baseball and football were too important to the people. They had green jerseys.
Was that the Steelers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that makes sense then.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that is wild to me.
What a wild time. Imagine being alive back then and like having the internet and everything.
That would be pretty interesting.
And like everything that we have now, just in that, with that going on at that time. But anyways, as far as like the game, obviously this is another one to circle from an Aaron Rodgers perspective. If he's going to be on the team.
So you're telling me that the NFL didn't look at this and say like, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of these games?
They're saying they didn't, but I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I find Jets opening up week 1 and then having Sunday Night Football, your first Sunday Night Football game as the Steelers being against the Packers. A little sus, if you ask me.
Yeah, like I understand the historical perspective between the two franchises, but like specifically this year.
I mean, there's historical perspective in their individual own ways. Like there's nothing really historical about the Steelers and the Packers together. They're just historical franchises in their own merit.
Yeah, played in one Super Bowl against each other, but yeah, you're right. Aaron Rodgers playing for the Steelers would be what links them together and makes this make sense to me. And then the Colts separate the Steelers from another Sunday night game, and this one surprised me to be on Sunday night, was against the Chargers, going to SoFi to play the Chargers. So yeah, two Sunday night games in a 3-week span between the Packers and Chargers.
Yeah. Colts game. I mean, we've seen this matchup several times.
We don't know who's going to play quarterback. Like we know what Shane Steichen's been able to do to the Steelers defense. He seems to have an answer for everything that they've thrown at him, but we have no clue if it's to be Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones.
Either way, I feel comfortable about what the Steelers can do with either of those quarterbacks playing. The Chargers, very interesting to me how they're going to look in 2025, because I feel like they are just kind of underwhelming when it comes to a lot of their areas of their team. Like obviously they have Justin Herbert. They added Omarion Hampton. We'll see how he does as a rookie. I mean, they also added Najee Harris. So that's another storyline for this game. But like their wide receiver room, very underwhelming. Quentin Johnston has not lived up to the hype. They actually have Mike Williams again back in LA. But Ladd McConkey's decent. I don't know. I just the Chargers to me don't seem as intimidating as they did a few years ago whenever like Herbert was in his like first couple years. Mainly just because I think the weapons are kind of lacking there. But it
a second round pick on my guy Trey Harris, but I don't know what he'll be right away.
Yeah, but it is an interesting matchup having that on Sunday Night Football. Not the. It seems like I feel like if you look at the past 10 years, I feel like the Chargers and the Steelers have played in prime time several times in that stretch.
Yeah, not the Tomlin Harbaugh matchup that I expected to get in prime time. I will say that.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
We got that before week 11. The second matchup with the Bengals. So getting the Bengals out of the way by week 11 is pretty interesting. This one takes place at home. Not too much to add. We talked about the Bengals in that first matchup. Chicago Bears, I would say, also one of the more interesting to me, just because that division can be so good this year, depending on what happens with the Bears. Brought in Ben Johnson, obviously, poured a ton of resources into that offensive line, hoping to see Caleb Williams take a year or two leap. Exits Keenan Allen, but they bring in Luther Burden, who's a super talented dude, just about getting out of his own way. And the defense has been good. Colston Loveland is a beast. I'm curious to see, obviously, I think Ben Johnson probably views him as like his Sam Laporta. Obviously, spent a higher pick than they did on Sam Laporta in Detroit to get Colston Loveland. But one of my favorite, actually, was my first round pick in my Dynasty League, the rookie draft. So I'm pretty high on Colston Loveland, obviously. But yeah, this is super intriguing to me. First time seeing Ben Johnson, first time seeing Caleb Williams, first time seeing a lot of these guys. Not a team that we play very often.
Yeah, I think it will be a good matchup. The one area, especially offensively, of the Bears that is kind of lacking still is their running back room. I mean, you have DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, but there's no like star back. There's no like true number one back that they have. Everywhere else, though, I mean, they have talent. Whether they put that talent together and become a good team we'll wait and see on that. But I think that they could develop into a nicely offensive team. And then, yeah, adding Ben Johnson, that's going to help as well. That's someone that a lot of the Steeler fans probably would have wanted to if they would have moved on from Tomlin, but that's never going to happen. So we knew that wasn't going to happen. And it wouldn't even be the Detroit coach that they would have signed if that did happen. We talked about that on this show.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how to gauge how good of a head coach somebody is going to be necessarily. There's just something about Ben Johnson that screams like he's going to be one of those guys that's a great coordinator, but not a very good head coach to me. I think it's just like the personality that I really don't see. And I think that's like the opposite with why am I blanking on his name though? The Jets head coach that came from Detroit as well. Aaron Glenn.
Aaron Glenn, yeah.
I think he looks like he's like a Tomlin disciple. Like I think that he's basically just Mike Tomlin light, and that's not a slight at him. I'm curious to see how he's going to be as a head coach. But Ben Johnson just screams like great coordinator and head coach to me. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. And then Buffalo coming to Pittsburgh in week 13 for a 425 game at Acrisure Stadium. So game of the week. We know it's going to be Romo and Nance Tall in this game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll be very thankful that I'm in attendance at that one because it seems like Tony Romo, who I was a huge fan of when he first came in and started doing this, when he calls Buffalo games and Kansas City games, I can't do it. I do it. I watch the game and I pay attention, but obviously, like it's just the way that he calls the game and talks about those tours. They're great. I get it, but it's just like it's next level.
Is it like Chris Collinsworth talking about like Brady?
Probably, yeah. I think that's the new version. Yeah, this is what our generation has.
Yeah, I mean that's fair to say. This part of the schedule to me is where it kind of kicks off to pretty similar to last year. I feel like where you have a stretch of games to close out the season that is going to be a difficult road. I mean, the last year it came after the bye. Because once you got to week 11, it was just tough game after tough game throughout the rest of the season. This year, you get to week 13 and starting with Buffalo. That's going to be a challenging game, even though you're at home. Who knows what the Steelers team is going to look like by that point in the season? But going on after that, having to go to Baltimore and then having to play the Dolphins at home, which, I mean, luckily that's a cold weather game. We're going to be in December 15th, so I would tend to think the Steelers could do well in that one just because the Dolphins literally, once they cross like the Florida border, they just are a completely different team. But then looking at like closing out with Detroit at Cleveland, just a divisional game, and then home against the Ravens. I don't know that it's necessarily as hard as the end of last season, but I think that there's similarities looking at not only is this closing out on this long stretch, but you have an even longer stretch from the bye because you're playing 13 games in a row. But then the quality of opponent goes up, I think, significantly over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, mention it till we're blue in the face, but cold weather Tua, never know what to expect there, or if he's even going to be healthy with him coming to Pittsburgh for that Monday night game. And I don't think Cleveland's going to be very good this year, but yeah, the other one's obviously Baltimore twice, home and home. Although, like, I don't know. I don't want to put this take out there. We just mentioned how it's stupid to go through the entire schedule one by one and go because you have no idea what the team's going to be. Early prediction, subject to change before the season. Obviously, we'll do a predictions on here. I think Baltimore is going to have this division wrapped up and not have to play their starters in that game
by the first or second game.
by the second one. So I think that Baltimore twice, Miami in there, and Cleveland. That's not going to look the same way by the time that comes.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's a fair point.
But obviously, Buffalo and Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just really looking at like having Buffalo, Detroit, and then that first Baltimore game in there is where I'm
weeks, yeah.
Stretch. Having to go to like I know like Chicago has been a laughable team, but if Chicago figures it out and they've got 11 weeks before it to figure it out, that could be a tough game as well.
And I know that like we talked about it being like a Thursday night thing, but they've struggled in Cleveland recently, and that's that week right after Detroit. So. Yeah, I mean, there's no gimmies here. I think that there's going to be a lot of tough games, even like from the bad teams. I think they're going to play them tough, but I don't think anything will top what the Steelers. I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is. But the way that like their schedule was at the back half of last season, I don't think that we'll see that again. Like not just Steelers wise for anybody. I mean, the gauntlet that they had to go through was insane.
Yeah, that's true. It's gonna be tough. The last time that the Steelers won both games against Cleveland in the regular season I think it was like 2018. I know it was a tie. 2017. I think it's the last time they won both games.
Really?
I'm going through it right now. 2017. They won both. Well, they won both games. 2018, you had the tie and a win. 2019, you had a win and a loss. 2020, you had a win. Did they only play one time?
No, the last week of the season, Mason played against.
Oh, it was 2021. I'm just looking at the actual date. Okay, so it was a win and a loss, win and a loss, win and a loss, and then you lost the last week of the season in 22. Yeah, so they haven't won. They have not swept that series since 2017.
They didn't win both in 21.
2021. I'm showing
second game would have happened at the beginning of 22 because it was January. So, but I thought they won. Now that I'm thinking about it, that would have been Pat's rookie year. I thought
so
they won.
2021. They they did win both. Never mind. They did win both. I was looking at that. I was
like, I'm pretty sure that
it's
won.
throwing me off because a lot of these games happen the first week of January, and so I'm looking at the date and it's throwing me off.
Yeah. All right. So
it hasn't been at that long, but that's the only time they've swept since 2017.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, this should be you look at Cleveland where they're at. I mean, I understand our quarterback situation is not better. But like,
but we're still trying to add one to the roster. They have too many to decide between, and they got to keep.
We'll see what happens there. Yeah, and somebody out of that group also isn't going to make the cut. Smitty from around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut, book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Last thing I want to ask you before we get out of here, because you are an out-of-state Steelers fan. Do you care at all?
I hate that.
Do you care at all when the schedule comes out? Because this is like a big thing, like why it's even this massive event for the schedule release, like all these leaks and people looking forward to it. And I'm just curious for somebody that knows, like they don't have to plan like when they're going to a game or like what their plans are for games or whatever. That to me would be that's why I look forward to it, because I'm mapping out who I'm going to games with. You know how I do it. Like I text everybody that's going to a game with me and like, hey, give me your top 3 options.
Yeah. It's not whether you're going to a game, it's who you're going to the game with.
Yeah. So it's like
you are a season ticket holder. So flex.
if no one's heard yet. But yeah, so as an out-of-state Steelers fan, do you even like look forward to the schedule release like everybody else, or no?
Kind of, because being in Oklahoma and even when I was in Utah, I kind of was looking forward to the schedule to see if they were playing a game that's within a drivable distance.
Okay.
And that's.
But see, you would know who the opponents and locations were already. So like,
yeah, but like knowing when those games are and like seeing what's going on. So like from that standpoint, yes, like I know the opponents and everything, but like seeing if it's drivable and if it's going to be able to like be made. Unfortunately, this year there is no drivable away game that I could go to. Like literally the closest one to me, I'm pretty sure is Chicago, and that is probably like 9.5, 10 hours away.
Sarge texted me today that he would like to go to Chicago. Like he's thinking about trying to put
Going to
together
Soldier
people to go to
Field?
Chicago. I wanted to do a road trip to Detroit. I really like Detroit. Went there for SummerSlam in 2023. Really enjoy that stadium. Like the event that I went to was there. We've been to the baseball stadium, but like very
Across the
close to
street,
each
yeah.
other. Like the way it's set up from that standpoint. And I mean, obviously I'm not going to root for them against the Steelers, but I like the Lions. Like if the Steelers are out of it, the Lions are kind of like, although last year it was Washington. So, but I really like Amon-Ra St. Brown, love Dan Campbell. There's individual players on there that I like. Brian Branch was one of my draft crushes that year. So, yeah, I think it'd be fun to go to, but like, I hate where it got placed on the schedule. Week of Christmas, gonna be hard to do.
Yeah.
So
that's a tough one. But honestly, who knows? Maybe by that point in the season, if the season is playing out similar to the Penguins did, you might be a Lions fan in that game.
I mean,
it's harder to believe that we'll get to that point with the Steelers like we did with the Penguins, but
what's like, where would the Steelers have to be playing for you to be able to go?
The ones that make sense are Kansas City, Dallas. They played in Houston a couple years ago, but I wasn't able to go to the game because of scheduling conflict. But also that was the game where they got absolutely crapped on. So I'm thankful that I didn't go to the game. And that was also the game that was super expensive, not only because it's the Steelers and there's like a Steelers tax when it comes to tickets. Literally 2 out of my 3 teams that I root for, the Penguins and the Steelers, if you're going to see them on the road, there's just like a surcharge because you're seeing that team. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Anyway, because they had a Steelers tax, but it was also the game that they were retiring or putting JJ Watt into like the Ring of Honor or retiring his number or whatever they do in Houston. So the cheapest tickets were like 300 something. And I'm just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Plus Houston's like a 7-hour drive. But yeah, from Oklahoma, it's definitely like Kansas City or Dallas, which Dallas is easier to predict because it's more scheduled when they play the NFC teams.
Well, Dallas, if we finish in the same spots in the division as the Cowboys this year, we'll play them in Dallas next year, I believe.
Okay.
So
yeah those are really the only two that like make sense from a driving standpoint. And when I lived in Utah, it was like the Raiders, like playing in Vegas.
Okay. Yeah, so 26, the only option based off that would be if we finish in the same spot as the Cowboys in the division, they'll go there. They play the Chiefs in 27, Kansas City, and they play Dallas for sure in 28 in Dallas because that's just the turn in the rotation for that entire division. So
don't let Kennedy see this. I'm hoping I'm not here by then, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, that's true too. A lot of other things should change other than just that. But yeah, I was curious. I'm curious to everybody's thoughts on that. How you feel about the schedule drop, because it's like a big thing for me and a big thing for a lot. I mean, there's literally Twitter accounts that exist only to do NFL schedule leaks. So
yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's a wild time, and it's something people get really into.
As a season ticket holder, again, subtle flex. What is the game you're looking forward to the most out of the home games?
Packers Sunday Night Football.
Football.
I mean, because of the uniform
not
too.
A fan of the night games, right?
I like them. Season ticket holders in general are not a fan of.
Okay.
I actually, there's something to. I think it ends up typically being a younger crowd because of like older people not wanting to go to them. Thursday Night Football, I've always really enjoyed in person. Like, I think that there's maybe less people there, but it's a more invigorated crowd. You came with me to actually maybe a couple Thursday night games, but for sure one where it was me, you, Sarge, and Christian. Me, you, Sarge, and Christian. I got all 4 of the seats that are on the lease for that one. And that's like still one of my favorite experiences. Like it just, I don't know. There was something about Thursday Night Football.
Seeing Cole Holcomb's season-ending injury was one of the experiences you treasured most.
I forgot that even happened in that game, but yeah, that's rough. Yeah, and then Quan in the Packers game, like the
week
game.
after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened at off-ball linebacker in 23, there will be stories told about. But yeah, I honestly, my least favorite slate. it might be Sunday 1:00, which is the most common one. I think 4:25 is great because it's not super early and not super late. Like I don't have to wake up super early to go down there, and I'm not getting home super late. And then I just enjoy the feel of prime, like in the dark with the lights on.
Yeah,
So
4:25, the lights will come on, or well, they're on when the game kicks off, but like it gets dark during the game, which is cool.
yeah. So I don't know. My least favorite is probably the most common one that the Steelers play in Sunday at 1:00. So, but be curious to the other people's thoughts on that as well. If they share the same sentiment, just in terms of the schedule, or let us know your favorite time slot the Steelers play in as well. Be sure to check out the description, whether you're watching or listening to this. All the links in the description about all the sponsors we've already talked about or are about to talk about. Right above Tyler right now, Marcelo Electric, our friend Brandon Marcelo, aka Boots. His small business serving Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, and Butler County, does residential, commercial, and service calls. To schedule him, 724-614-0611. Again, that's 724-614-0611. But we have his Facebook page down below with all that contact information on it, as well as all the work that he's done as well. I think he actually just got his van customized with his logo and stuff on it. Looks pretty sweet. So if you go over to his Facebook page, you'll see that over there. But if you are on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments. Like I said, if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave a 5-star review, subscribe over there. Those descriptions are on both of them. If you want to save yourself $10 over at gamechanger.la or pick6.la, please be sure to do so using code AT412. And then if you're in Beaver County, or if you just want to make a long distance drive to get a haircut, download the app, The Cut, and book an appointment with Keek over at Keek's Barbershop. That's it. Let us know again how you feel about the schedule in the comments. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.